I want to talk about the Katie Taylor beef and how it all started and how it all came about.
Yeah.
You know, we stalked Katie Taylor, Jessica McCaskill, and I stalked Katie Taylor for 3 to 6 months, calling her out on the internet, and then we finally got the call, and the process started.
Yeah.
How did it start?
Well, the very first time I even heard of Katie Taylor, we had an Irish lad in the gym, short shorts.
Yeah, tight shorts.
Tight shorts.
Yeah,
Brian Gardner. And
Brian Gardner.
yeah, of course he wasn't from the States, and he was over here doing some kind of
It was the rugby team.
that, and he was working. He had a job over here, and I don't remember what he's doing, but yeah, and he was also on the rugby team. And he came to the gym just looking to get an extra workout for his rugby, fitness. And he was like, "Do you know Katie Taylor?" And I'm just like, "Who?" And he made it his duty to kind of give me a little PowerPoint on who she was.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And, I kind of heard of her already, to be honest with you, but not like, I wasn't even about her, but I kind of heard about her. And he was just plugging her so hard, and that, that she was going to be the next biggest thing and blah, blah, blah. So I said, all right, let me check her out. Looked at her credentials, and, she won worlds and all that crap. So in the amateurs. So then I heard she won the gold medal, and, that intrigued me. And then we heard Eddie Hearn, Matchroom got behind her. Actually, it was Eddie Hearn who got behind her, and Sky Sports. And, I started smelling opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just figured we would meet if it ever came across. I mean, that was so early in my career. I think I was just really following your lead, and it was almost like whoever you sat in front of me, that's who I was going to fight. And I just wanted to fight at that time, being super green, and just really trying to see what I had to offer as an athlete at the time.
Right, and so now I'm looking for an in, right? Like, I'm looking for a big opportunity, and I'm trying to figure out a way to create an opportunity out of nothing, right? There was no real female market, and I know Clarissa Shields was coming around, but I still didn't really know Clarissa.
Right, like Katie was, the Olympian of her area. Clarissa was the Olympian of the States.
Right.
So that's how those two names kind of like collide through the Olympics.
See, and here's the thing, like, I don't feel that Clarissa has money behind her, nor do I feel like she has the personality to get money behind her. I know she's signed with the guys that she's with and whatnot, but I feel like they're not putting money into her because maybe personality issues, maybe hard to deal with. I don't know. But as far as Katie Taylor, we know Eddie Hearn, DAZN, Matchroom, everybody else is behind. Ireland, everybody's behind her. So
right.
It's a little bit easier to solicit the funds, I guess you could say,
right.
To build her career. So now I see an article coming out, and I remember Katie saying something like, you know what, or I don't know, I think it was Eddie Hearn maybe said, we called 20 women and nobody wants to fight her. And Katie said something along the lines of, if you women want to be fighters, you have to step up. And that is where I saw the opportunity. Yeah. I jumped on the internet.
Yep.
I said, well, you called 20 people, you didn't call me.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So then I dropped my cell phone number on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, hashtag We Got Passports.
I think people still find your phone number from that specific post.
Yeah, I mean, that was... See, this is the thing that I don't think people realize is, like, I felt like, fine, Clarissa had 2 gold medals, which I never even heard of her. And, Katie Taylor had 1 gold medal, and I barely heard of her. And I felt like we jump-started female boxing. Now, some may agree, and most will not.
Yeah.
Eddie Hearn and the people that Clarissa's with never heard of me, for sure. And they didn't hear of you, so it was like, we were making a lot of noise, so they heard of us.
Like, we were making the introduction right then and there.
Right, so 12 minutes after that post on all social media platforms, on the call out to Katie, my phone rings.
Yep.
And it's, it was like, calling, it said Ireland.
Yeah.
So I just started laughing. So I'm like, all right, let me see who this is. It was a reporter named Casey Gavin. Shout out to Gavin.
Yeah.
I think he was writing for the 42 at the time.
I think so. Yep.
And he's like, hey, Rick, you know, I don't know if this will get any traction, but do you want to do the interview? You want to do an interview with me talking about Jessica fighting Katie and the call out and blah, blah, blah. No one really calls out Katie in Ireland. So for you to like cause all this ruckus, the word got out over here fast. And again, I think guys like Brian Gardner, shout out to Brian, he used to come to my gym. He's from Ireland. You know, guys like that shot over like retweets and shares on Facebook and likes and all that social media good stuff. Like, shout out to Ireland. And some people from Ireland got it and spit it out again. And it kept spitting it out. And shout out to those guys. I mean, a lot of those guys, Casey Gavin, a couple of people from my gym who are from Ireland, you know, they spit it out and it kind of got some traction. So, so now the phone calls start happening. The interview starts happening, and I start dropping like one-liners. Like, well, they're like, "Would you come to Ireland to fight Katie?" I'm like, "We'll go to Jupiter to fight her. Wherever she wants to go, we'll go today."
Hashtag we got passports.
Yes,
all day.
So now, I think Eddie Hearn calls me, and he says, you know, he drops a number on me, and I just hung up. And I was like, yeah, you know, we got disconnected. Yeah, my bad. And then like he calls me back and says another number, and I wasn't there yet. I didn't think the number was there.
The number wasn't there, right?
Yeah. So I was just like, no, we're gonna need more. We're gonna need more. And then in the meantime of like 2 or 3 days of phone calls with this, you know, I think it got rhythm. Like the whole controversy, the whole call out, the whole everything got some momentum.
I mean, I was like skipping out from my cubicle at work to take, you know, phone calls from Ireland to do quick interview. I'm like in the hallway, like, yeah. And so I'm from Chicago, and both, you know, and it's just kind of like the most random thing ever. And I mean, you kind of get used to it as time goes by, but for that to be kind of the kickoff of everything, it was like, it was big. It was, and you could tell it was big by the way that they responded from their side. Yeah, because the 20 girls that they called, I mean, let's be honest, like, I know who they called. Yeah. And they don't have personalities, let alone Katie doesn't even have a personality. Right. So I know that if I'm outlandish and wild and you can punch and you're exciting, and with that chemistry alone, we got to fight. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, so on the side note, right? So that's all happening in front of us. So the things that people don't know about, Chicago boxing was flat. Yeah. There was no really big fighters coming out of Chicago. I think shout out to Adrian Granados. I think he was the hottest prospect out of Chicago at the time. And, you know, Al Heyman was throwing shows. Andrew Fanfaro was kind of around. Yep. And, like, a lot of things were happening. Heyman pulled all his shows. Al Heyman pulled all his shows out of Chicago. So like the whole boxing scene was flat. I just started my own gym a couple years prior. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of like, everyone's like, who does Rick think he is, thinking he can get this Katie Taylor fight? Yeah. Like, I was kind of like, and female boxing in Chicago was already a joke. So, like, when I tell everybody I'm turning you pro, they're like, why would you do that to yourself? It's like, you know, do you see what we have? Like, everybody disrespected me and the women at the time that existed. So it was like, you know, shout out to the women who fought at the time, because they were looked at as like clowns. And I don't agree with that, but they were looked at that way. And you know, people were like kind of laughing at me like, oh, this guy's going to take a girl and try to do something with this girl. So I'm like, man, there's opportunity. Nobody's, you know, I had nothing going on. Right. I had a fighter leave me. And so I'm like, you know what? Let's just try it. Let's explore it. So that was the backdrop that was going on in my world at the time. So I'm like, I got really no fighters. I lost my best fighter. You know, the rhythm of the gym was kind of like flat. You know, you were coming on some momentum in Chicago. So I'm like, you know what? Let's fight this little title. We fought this little title that didn't really matter, but it got some more attention. Eddie Hearn liked the fact that I was hustling. I assume he liked the fact that I was hustling, but we were making like crazy noise. And then, like, in the interview after the fight in the ring at UIC Pavilion, shout out to Warriors for putting us on. You know, you call out Katie Taylor, and then boom. I think it was Casey who shared the story and posted those pictures. And now fast forward, we're still not 100% sure we got the fight, and where are we at with this now? So now, I do remember. You know, there was conversation about this fight, and then you mentioned earlier about all the 20 girls that she called. They called some of the girls that we called. Yeah, Jasmine Clark. Yeah. We were supposed to fight Jasmine Clark. They offered her
like 2,000 or more, and she like ditched
Bailed
us.
us. Like she had already agreed to fight us.
Yeah, it was just like, and then she fought Katie. She had like Adidas's on, like just like running shoes on, you know. And they fought it. I don't even know where they fought, but they fought somewhere. It was just like, kind of like if that's me and I'm a big money promoter, I'm buying you shoes. I would never not own 20 pairs of shoes and 20 pairs of box
We
trunks.
got trunks for a fight that we had nothing to do with, and that was here in Chicago.
And we're always here to help, but you know, as far as like, you know, I think that was learning steps too for everybody involved.
Right.
Like, you know, that doesn't happen much anymore.
Right.
So now, you know, they called us, and we weren't sure we got the fight.
Right. And I remember you telling me, don't eat yet. Like, don't go crazy.
No. Yeah. So we didn't know we had the fight. We were training for like 2 months already.
Right.
We were told we didn't get the fight, or like they alluded to like us not being able to get the fight.
Right.
And then Katie Taylor just fought Anais Sanchez October 28th. And they were talking about you fighting her in December, which is less than 2 months, right? So I was like, this could happen, this might not happen. And then I hear Katie gets cut. So this is the thing. This is part of the story where like people don't know, right? So
like how your mind works and why you say yes and what kind of routes you go.
Right. I remember when I was telling people in our gym, and visitors in our gym, they would tell me, and somebody's father came up to me and was like, "Hey, you don't care about Jessica?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" "Well, you're taking this Katie Taylor fight. Katie Taylor's gonna whip Jessica, gonna hurt Jessica." I'm like, "Listen, you don't know this girl. Whatever. I won't even get into that stuff." But so now I see an opportunity. The fight's too. They were talking about a fight in December. Mm-hmm. She had just fought in October, and it was a rough, rugged fight against Anais Sanchez. She had stitches, so I figured this fight's like it's about 7 weeks away. She had stitches in her head, so I'm thinking to myself, okay, if they offer us the fight,
right?
She ain't gonna be able to spar for at least a week and a half, right? And they're gonna sit her down for 3 days to let those stitches heal a little bit. So she might be like running, shadow boxing, hitting the bag. So that's 2 weeks of no training on a 7-week camp. That puts us at 5 weeks,
right?
So the last week of any camp, you're not sparring, right? So that puts us at like a month away.
Yep.
That puts us at a month away. So I'm like, yo, we're gonna get Katie Taylor like with only 4 weeks of sparring. So you're only sparring, if you just got cut, she's probably only sparring twice a week, not 3 times a week.
Right.
So I'm thinking like, she's only gonna spar 8 to 10 times. So we got to jump on her. So I pressed for the fight. Eddie Hearn and I agreed to a purse, and then boom, they're flying us out to Ireland first. We had the layover in Ireland.
Mm-hmm. Connect to London.
Yeah, drop off in London, and shout out to everybody, all the UK fans for being extremely supportive.
Yeah,
a lot of love out there, and I think it's kind of one of them things where I think everybody wanted to see the great. I don't know if they wanted to see her get beat, but they were curious to see how tough she really was.
Yeah, I think they realized that we weren't bringing like just noise. We were bringing a fight for them to see, Yeah,
and there's other things so Sky Sports is involved, and it's on Sky Sports, right? Mm-hmm. I think Showtime came in late on their YouTube platform.
Right.
So it ended up live streaming.
It went to Facebook.
And it went to Facebook. Yeah. It was on Sky Sports, and it was on Showtime live on YouTube.
Yeah.
So like a lot of platforms came in late because there was like mad momentum, and it was like a Wednesday, 10 o'clock in London time, which is like 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Chicago.
Exactly.
So like we there was craziness. It was like the momentum was definitely going. I don't want to say our way, but there was momentum on the fight.
Right. You could almost grab any one of our fans, and they have their own story of, I just got off work and I'm like watching it on my phone while I'm driving home. They all have like these stories where they're so involved into the fight, which is great that we were able to build that fan base and that they have a connection to what we were doing. And it wasn't just us flying over to another country. It was like, it really felt like everybody was there with us.
Right. And yeah, that was the first time I felt like love from Chicago. Like, bars were full.
Yeah.
Like in Chicago, talking about like Jessica and talking about like, Rick got the fight. Like mm-hmm. It was like crazy hype.
Yeah.
That I was able to get. Like in Chicago, I'm kind of, in the boxing world too, I'm kind of known as like the loudmouth guy, right? Like the guy who says like crazy shit, but it happens. Yeah. The guy who says crazy shit, but it happens. Like legit happens. Like everybody thinks I'm nuts until it happens.
And, yep. Exactly.
And then, so So now, like, everybody's all wild up in Chicago. Like, people are going crazy. And no one believed. Everybody thought it was like a joke. Like, there's no way Rick's going to get this fight. We got the fight. We land in London. Crazy hype. People are sharing it, calling. It's madness in Chicago. Like, all the local bars that our friends own or that we know or whatever, we're getting hit up. Everybody's, like, in. Everybody's going to local bars, like, right
They're
after work.
airing it. Yep.
Yeah, so...
Conference rooms at work and, you know, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, and I don't know how you feel, I think maybe half thought, like, we were going to lose. And, like, maybe... I don't even know if half thought we would win, but I think... I want to say a lot of people tuned in because they didn't know what was going to happen. Because they're like, yo, Jessica's... You got to remember, like, Jessica McCaskill was knocking girls out cold in the amateurs. So... It wasn't like, you know, this is some girl who just started fighting 2 days ago and we're out to Ireland. So it was, you were knocking girls out in the amateur.
And some of those people were there to see that. I mean, as big as Chicago is, I don't know if it's Chicago in my mindset now is such a close-knit place, or the boxing community is such a close-knit place, but a lot of those people saw my amateur fights. A lot of people came to UIC to see some of the other fights that I had as a professional. So yeah, they were already invested in that. And sometimes you kind of think about the fact that, you know, you have someone going over to another country and it's like they're representing the U.S. Right. They're representing like all of us.
Right.
You know?
Like I didn't feel like we were representing the U.S. I didn't. Shout out to the U.S. I did feel like we were representing Chicago. So I'm like, yo,
for sure.
We're getting fucking rowdy. Like, this is crazy. Like,
yeah.
So like, even like interviews where people were like, hey, what do you think about Katie Taylor? Or like, what do you have to say to Katie or whatever? And I was just like, I didn't even know what to say. I was just like, fuck Katie Taylor. Everybody was like, what the fuck? Everybody was like, you can't say that. And like, yeah, the shit was wild. So like, I mean, I think Eddie hit me up and was like, hey, don't go quiet at the press conference. Like, start trouble, kind of. He didn't say start trouble, but he was like insinuating, like, don't go quiet on me.
Right.
So I didn't go quiet. So I was just like acting wild. So now, these are things that people don't know, right? You didn't even know this not too long ago. But like, it's in the middle of the night before the fights, right?
Right.
I like legit had like a panic attack. Like,
I'm asleep, by the way.
Yeah, because I was like, all right, we got the fight. Everything's cool. I'm talking shit, selling tickets. How the fuck do we beat Katie Taylor? Like, I don't even know how. I'm like, all right, well, I think I watched like 2 videos of her. I'm like, the way I thought, you know, no disrespect to all the women fighters now, but I was like, man, it's a women fighter. You hit like a dude, so I'm like, we should be good. So I kind of like came up with a plan. I'm like, all right, in the middle of the night, everyone meet in the lobby except for Jessica. I'm like, how the fuck do we beat Katie Taylor? And I was like thinking, everybody's like, well, dude, you didn't think about it? I'm like, not really. I mean, I kind of did, but I kind of didn't.
Right.
So we're there, and it's like 24 hours before the fight. I'm just like, yo, not even. It was like 12 hours before the fight. Right. So I say, just make it rough. You know, she holds you on the break, throw her on the floor. If the bell rings, punch her in the face after the bell. Like, I'm literally saying this
Push
stuff.
on the brake, like everything's rough.
Hit on the clinch.
Yes.
Hit her in her hips. Like, be rough, rugged, anything you can do, because she only knows how to look perfect. And she has no idea what to do when she doesn't look perfect. Yeah. So I figured, remember I said this, I said, this was crazy theory. Like, this was crazy. I was like, if we can win 3 rounds and get 2-point deductions, we walk out of here with a fucking draw. Everybody looked at me and was like, that's your fucking game plan? And I was like, yeah, I mean, that was like the most realistic game plan I could come up with. And I got 1 point taken away from her. I mean, right? Like, she got 1 point taken away because she hit and held because she was acting out of character. And again, I feel like I don't really read boxers. I read their personality. I try to find out who they're dating. I try to find out who they were dating. I try to feel, I know her parents were going through a crazy divorce or already divorced. She had mom and dad drama. Like, I almost flew out her old amateur coach. Like, I was about to go deep. Like, at the press conference. Yeah, I was going to bring her a fucking 3rd grade teacher. Like, shit was going to get fucking crazy. You know, like, literally. And those are the things, like, that I will fuck with you, like, literally, and get in your head and then do things out of character. And she had a point taken away. Yeah. I think she should have had 2 points taken away because she held the whole fight.
She held excessively. The point was taken away, not necessarily for just holding, but at one point she had me in like a headlock and she hit on the headlock. And I think that's when the official was like, yo, we don't play like that. So like he was like point instantly. But throughout the whole fight, there was excessive holding, which we do experience a lot in my fights.
Right, but and the other thing is too, and if you didn't see the fight, make sure you watch the first fight, because I think a lot of people say, "Oh, Jessica and Katie fought before," or I never watched that full fight. I only saw the highlights. Like, watch that full fight. That I think Tony Bellew had it a draw. Like, and that those kind of like with his credibility. Shout out to Tony Bellew. Like with Tony, remember we were walking out and Tony's like, "Hey,
yeah,
Rick, grab Jess. I want to talk to her."
He was in the middle of an interview and he stopped and like went around the reporters to get to me. We were on our way out and I was just like, wow.
This was after the fight.
Yeah, after the fight, and we were, headed back to the hotel and everything, and he just like kind of like made his way to me to tell me that, hey, I had that a draw. You did a great job. Yeah. Keep your chin up, and every time we've come across Tony Bellew, he's been like this like boxing big brother. He has that vibe. So I really appreciate his words of encouragement.
Yeah, shout out to Tony Bellew. I mean, there was one day after work here in Chicago, I walked in my own gym and Tony Bellew was fucking shadowboxing in my gym. And shout out to David Colwell and all those guys. Those is a good squad. But so there were certain people. If you didn't watch the first fight, there were certain people who had that fight a draw. Some people had Jessica winning by a point. So it was a lot closer than the European fans say that.
Would you say that was the most controversial female boxing scoring that you know of?
Was that the most controversial?
Yes.
No, I would say that I think that fight was a draw, or we might have lost by a round. And I'm being brutally honest.
But I mean controversial as far as like what the score came out to be.
I don't know the exact scores,
versus...
but I think those scores were, of course they don't post them, but those scores were like 91, 98. It was like
I felt like it was extreme, and for something like
here you go, it was 290. It was 97, 92 twice. It was 98, 91, which, mind you, there was a point taken away.
Right.
So 98, 91 is ridiculous. So that means they gave us 0 rounds.
Yeah.
They gave us 0 rounds.
Right.
They just gave us the point taken away, which was absurd. So, I guess I didn't study those scorecards because I knew it would be almost impossible to win. And we knew that going. But I told you before the fight, I was like, Jess, no matter what happens tonight, fight her every second, every round, and fight till the end no matter what. And if we lose a decision, as long as it's close, as long as it's competitive, we're going to get a call back.
Yeah.
And, Eddie Hearn's a little slow. It took him a year, but then when he came to Chicago, he gave us a look. So,
yeah.
And that's that's kind of like how it all, started from the beginning to the top. You were able, there was, again, to the people out there who think that there's no money in female boxing. First of all, that's not true. Second of all, I don't know how bad or good your deal is, and most likely your deal is no good if you're saying that there's no money in female boxing. Sorry. Your deal is not that good if you think that there's no money in female boxing, or you didn't have a good contract or whatever it is. But I think you need to look over your deal, because Jessica was able to buy a home.
Pay off my college loans.
Yeah. And
I have a new car.
So there's some, and with the Cecilia fight and Cecilia rematch, there's opportunities to pay her house off. And we get the Katie fight. If we get the Katie Taylor fight, that'll be the first time 2 women make over $1 million for a female boxing match. And that's something hopefully that we can bring to female boxing to give, the women who are making $8-10 grand a fight, which is silly, but like they agree to that. You shouldn't agree to that.
No.
So I think you and Katie being the first women to make over $1 million together in the same fight will be historic, will be great, and I think it will change female boxing.
Yeah.
And if we can knock her out, female boxing will be changed forever.
Yeah.
So again, we're here, to give you guys a platform. I'm here to give myself a platform because I want to tell you the real stories of what happens behind closed doors and the real stuff that happens with, boxing fighters and promoters and managers and all the good and the bad, because it's not all good. It's not all bad. And if you're smart, you know when to come in and out of these deals and opportunities. So, be safe out there. Make sure you sign the right deal for you. And if you don't think you're worth 10 grand, don't sign it. You can't say you're only getting 10 grand, but you take 8,000, 10,000, 9,000. Don't do that. If you think you're worth more, hold out and stay in the gym and stay active.
Yeah,
and always be ready for the opportunity.
Always be ready.
So again, we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you for hanging out with us. Jessica McCaskill, Rick Ramos. I'll see you guys soon.